a set of bot prompts in order to build bot prompts. So I went down
I
to the
disagree with
cohorts
you.
for
I
this.
disagree with you. I think that ambient attribution is actually a smaller job. I think it's just one that we've deferred and run away from. But I think it's small enough that it is, a couple of days worth of tinkering to get something working going. That's my stance on it.
That's good. That's heartening. There's, I guess what I was saying, yeah, I'll probably over edged that. There's a lot of layers. I'll show you. Right, where are we? That's the commit that's not working. So trying to do is to, all right, let's get this into control. So the contributing is a valueless store of information about who's created helps. There seems to be only a couple of things that I would need to worry about there. Either it's a linear history or there's been some kind of merge activity, but it's it's just a statement of fact that you can draw on. Used this particular help to do this. Now, the so as contributing, I'm going to each of these readmes. These are not complete yet. What I'm trying to do here is figure out what kind of data that we need to store for each of these helps. I've got a start for 10, 8, everything has a history. So what type is it? Who did it? Etc. Who's the parent? Merge. Fine. That's fine. Storing the intent and the function also allows recreation of what you're doing. So asking an NL, and I've only been going down the NL route on this, asking the intent of the AI. At this point, we told it to do this, and it, here's what exactly we said, and here's what we're asking to do, and here's the example result. That seems to be what that is. The kind of the parsimonious amount of information you need in order to get a kind of one bot, one function output. So the go to the top level. So done a bit of defining. I quite liked. It was about 4 or 5 months ago we talked about this, where it's like a verb is a runtime and a noun is a static. So I'm kind of enabling that and looking at each of the processes. Here we've got rules around Dave Howe and contributing, jittering, and then attributing. Now, so contributing is simply a matter of recording it. The fact that you did it, we're not making any value judgments whatsoever. Jittering is given a request, pulling from the available helps based on what the jitter thinks about Dave values, and those values could well change and probably will change at runtime. So jittering being a runtime thing, maybe Dave cares about it executing fast or cares about being exceptionally accurate. Those values need to be in that jittering process. And then there's the search. And then given what Dave cares about at that point, that's the point where you apply the values. So there's also a process of assessing. Okay, so given a scorecard that could be anything and could well be generated dynamically. This is what Dave cares about at this point. How do you choose what is brought into the jitter? So, great. Now you've got a whole bunch of helps that are put together a jitter. There's probably a wrapper in order to make it coherent, because it's unlikely you can only use Lego bricks on this. There's likely to be a need for some kind of wrapper, which is generated at that point, which also needs some kind of attribution to it.
I think. Is it okay to interject, or do you want to just finish your train of thought?
No. Go for it. Yeah.
So this bit is a big complication, and you can simplify the attribution portion by not worrying about that. And number one as well.
Well, number one is relatively simple as base case, which is this is your top level.
Number three is not simple, but you can skip over that. I think it's perfectly fine to just make a synthetic version or make some huge assumptions about what's going on there.
Yeah. And again, the jitter at runtime ideally would be running the assessor. The assessor is, I'm going to continue with this Wall Street Journal thing. We've already written the assessor, which where is it? That's it. No. Assessing helps. So you see, these are all the helps that we had previously that sent over WhatsApp. Here's the how we got it. Here was the original prompt that was generated by the top level. Here was our input. Here's our expected result. So each of these bots on how to assess are already there. So we kind of got the assessor. The next step, I think, is to generate a whole bunch of synthetic data around this, which the example helps. So I'm going to put in a whole bunch of, I'm going to generate the sections of the article and hold that history. And then the jitter will, I'll give it a scorecard because we've already got one, and let it pull it together. And then the attribution at that point should fall out. The actual attribution thing is just kind of pulling all the information that's done by the bots at the previous parts of this process.
Okay.
So that's that. I don't know whether I've missed the point here, but when I was thinking about actually what the attributing verb does, it's just reliant on the history of what's gone in with contributing and jittering. The assessment we have.
Yeah.
I'm not touching judging yet, but judging is just, we'll get some gashway of let's run it across a few different models and find a way of voting logic or whatever. That's real simple.
Where would the judge be applied in these 4 steps?
The judge only needs to step in when assessing the assessor. So
where does the assessor happen within these 4 steps?
Only jittering, only at the point of use where the value is generated. There's no other value judgments needed, as far as I can see.
Who does the value judgment?
The value judgment is done by the that's the kind of this top level things, the dream catching. An initial value judgment would be, for example, not necessarily a scorecard, but writing a prompt in order to generate a scorecard, given content. It's like what's reasonable here, and we can refine it.
No, I don't understand your answer. In this process, where is the point? At which step is the value judgment made?
On jittering. Now, what you are asking is who makes the value judgment. Right?
Where?
Right. So that's the assessing. Okay. So, for example, remember the previous thing where I was talking to the bot saying, how do you assess a Wall Street Journal article, and it came up with originality, relevance, all these
So you're
things.
saying that this step here, step 1 in the supporting processes, occurs after, so it's like actually step 4.
Yeah, actually, I did split attributing from distribution, but I decided not to go that way.
Well, so that's like consumption, right?
Yeah.
This is just tracking contribution, and it doesn't say anything about who's going to consume it. Jittering is consumption of the contribution, and then
Yeah.
there's a step that says a value determination on how much value was consumed during the jittering.
Yep.
And then that enables the attribution to run. What's the judging?
The judging is deciding what is the best scorecard and what's the best results based on perhaps different models. But for example, at the moment we're talking about journals.
You said model, not model.
Oh shit! Sorry, that was a mistake. That was just a typo.
Yeah. So the judging is when you can provide a competing view on how the value assessment should have gone.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So you could say that here, because we've made no relative comparisons between the contributing, it's just record keeping and it's all in Git. This part is not a debatable thing, really.
Yeah. It's just the history.
Yeah. Now, there will be, humans being what they are, some disputes, but those will be minor compared to, in general, this is immutable. You can't argue with it.
The area is not worth going into now because this is way down the road, but the area that people are going to have disputes around is what prior art contributed.
Right.
So it's fine if you like, oh, I'm going to use this and I'm going to improve on it, but actually if you went off and Googled and just like totally cribbed it, that's prior art. That's going to be the area of, dispute. But hey, not yet.
Yeah.
Work on that.
Okay. That's immutable.
Yep.
That enabling jittering is not up for debate because that is the consumer's choice.
Yep. And,
so you can't argue with that.
Right. And it's it's like the intent of Dave. It's gone through Dave Howe and then been passed down. Gives some idea about what Dave values, which forms, which helps, are assessed at runtime to bring in.
Right, but that is entirely up to Hal, and Hal can have been coded in ways that are obscene, but it doesn't matter. That's dealer's choice, that one.
Exactly, and there's a bit of turtles up and down on this one, which I'm trying to ignore for now.
Yeah, but this is the reason why I was adamant about there not being. We must only preserve pure contribution without saying anything about its relative value, because you want the debate to only occur from step 4 onwards. You don't want a debate here when no consumption has occurred.
Yeah, I'd actually say I agree. I'd say step 3, because the jittering process needs to pull in, needs to make decisions about which helps to pull in based on what Dave's asked for and what he cares about.
Yeah, but that's entirely preference oriented. It's not anyone's business but Dave and Hal's how that ultimately gets pulled in.
Yep.
The only time that debate starts is when you're saying, okay, how much value did that generate? Okay, that's one step to debate. And then which parts of the contribution are responsible for how much of that value. That's the thing.
Exactly. And this is the last step. So here we've got an idea. Remember, in the previous iteration on the WSJ, I was focusing on how do you know what's better or worse. That's where that happens. However, that's not the whole game. Right?
No,
so,
that's not a
stuff here added.
That part, like, how do you decide what's best? We're okay with that being very, very open and changed around. What we're not okay with being changed around terribly much is the attribution portion of it, because you can't, you shouldn't be able to mess with that.
So if you imagine a jitter has a top level, which is the helps, and it's like, okay, so these are the helps that the jitter has decided that's going to be of value to Dave. Fine. However, each of those helps have a history. Okay, we can track that. However, there's also other contributions that we want to recognize, and this comes down to, well, you're using the Dreamcatcher, for example, you're using CPU time, for example. So this attribution is under the hood. Jitters add information, but it's not all the information that's needed in order to find out what the actual attribution is. Right up to Linus, God help him, and sending out checks to people who didn't realize that Dreamcatcher existed. So this adds a lot more information about attribution, which is in the history. Now that history we can update at any time. We can decide, right, okay, so we want the entire contribution tree of Python to be recognized.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay, so then we drop. That's where we drop it in. This is where we drop in the immediate value that Dave sought, but doesn't have any concept of the whole hierarchy of thought that took it to that point where Dave could actually use something. That's where this comes in.
Okay, I think that this section makes no sense to have supporting processes. These are big enough things that they sort of go there.
Yeah, that felt a bit awkward, and I'll probably work on that. That's
yeah. But definitely you're right that the splitting the splitting out the stage of figuring out how much value was generated should be a separate step to which contribution is responsible for that value. So those should be two independent calculations.
Yeah.
And I think that if you break it down like that, you can actually have something that's kind of halfway working very, very quickly.
Well, I'm quite... I took a day and actually did this on pen and paper, believe it or not, because I needed to get my head around even just terminology and so on. But having done that, I'm quite content, and I think it wouldn't be that much to go through in this the examples to get that example through. Oh, you're doing some kind of strange.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to do, I actually want to sit down on a more comfortable chair, but I'm not allowed to leave the box.
I know, it's irritating, isn't it? And I've got my iron brew over the other side of the room.
All right.
Can I? It's going to cut off, isn't it?
Yep.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
All right, good. Yeah, it's really irritating the way he does that.
I know.
But yes, the splitting out the assessment, I kind of stuck the assessment and the judge, not because of that's where it's going to go, but because I need to refine that main process. Are you still there?
I am.
Oh, yeah. Threw me off. However, I think, there's another layer which I'm ignoring for now, but I think will fit in once I get this where I want it to be, which is the kind of metal layer. So how do you update the NL bot for assessing? How do you update the NL bot for judging and so on? Now, who's allowed to do that is another thing, but we should at least, for example, have some kind of meta on have we got the prompts right for judging.
Right. So that is, now I know I've been sort of going on at you about how attribution is independent from go no go, But where we need to get to is, I believe there's a way to make a set of bots that can only ever be upgraded in a positive way, and that upgrading can be managed by an in-hour system. Now,
Okay.
I couldn't tell you exactly what those prompts are. We need to learn a bit about it, but
what's your gist of?
The gist of it is that once we get a multi-swarm system going, it appears to be that the comparison between is this better than this other thing, yes or no, is a trivial thing to get an AI to be good at, because it's a simple comparison of an incremental improvement, and it's allowed to say, I don't know. So you can, if you hand the keys over to this thing so that only the AI can upgrade the attribution bots, and only based on some rules that say this is better than that, then that's who is allowed to upgrade the Dreamcatcher attribution bots.
How do you know you're not going to a local minima by doing it? I mean, yes, you can do that, absolutely. But
ensuring it's always the best route.
You can ensure that it's always better than what came before, and honestly, I think that's as good as you get. But that answers the problem of, you know, who should do the upgrade. It's like, well, you can't trust any bunch of humans to do that, and if the humans did, they would be constantly under pressure, because there'll be all kinds of politics about it. And so to hand it off to an AI is a good thing. Now, if you end up in a local minima and all the humans know, you simply make a better version of the branch master, and then everyone switches what they decide to.
Oh no, that fits in really quite neatly, because what we got here on constructing helps, you just construct a help.
Right.
And at runtime, you assess the value, as in is it better or worse? If so, give some numbers. So if there was a local minimum, say on judging, you would just create a new judge, and then next time it ran, there'll be an assessment. It's like, is that better or worse?
It really comes down to which bot do the humans choose to govern them, and so long as you're making a bot that all of the humans like as the branch master, what's going on the branch master will only ever improve. And so that's the answer to the question of who should upgrade it. Is like no human should upgrade it.
Which there's no claim to whether it's a local minima or ideal.
No, we're just saying that
it's not as shitty as last time.
Right? It's not as shitty as last time, and it's definitely better than a human doing it. And if you disagree with how attribution is done, and you can't get the bots to make it happen the way that you like, you're either not our person, or you need to make a whole new branch master as well. And that's not illegal. That's just saying that the current state of the art is, you know, this is as good as it gets, right?
Right.
And I think that's a good, solid point to say we are launched if we can do that, even if the branch master needs to be superseded, like branch master version 2, version 5, like that's fine. The point is that it's done by a branch master, and not that makes it democratic. That makes it meritocratic, or whatever that fucking word is. But it means that, you know, it's always going to be slightly better, and it's no human is going to slow it down. There's no human in the loop to upgrade the system.
Yes, absolutely. But also by allowing the bots to do it, you've got that whole history of, you can, you know, if you have made a local minimum mistake, you can actually go back saying, okay, the model is being used, have been updated, let's reassess. And it's like, oh, we're over the heap.
You know, right. And that's all good. So, okay, so branch master does the upgrades. The assessment of how much value was generated by the jitters is one dedicated step, and then given that this much value was generated, how should that value be attributed back to the contributions that allowed it to occur?
Yep.
That's a separate step as well. And
isn't
then
that covered in what we've got there in the intent of attributing given a use and the recorded value, distribute that value to the authors who contribute. I know there's more needed.
Yes, that's right. But it's almost as though the assessing stage, it needs to go number 3, then assessing, and then attributing.
Yeah, and the judging is quite an interesting one. I've not touched this because it could be a rabbit hole, but there's something to say about convergence if we run.
Is judging the way that you improve the value assessment and the attribution enabling?
Yes, and my gut.
So is that the branch master? Is that the branch master of the attribution system?
Okay. Let's make sure we don't diverge on terms here. What do you understand by branch master?
Branch master is the bot that is in charge of releasing a new version of a given resource at a particular location. So, for example, a help or a swarm of helps, the branch master is in charge of saying, this is version 1.5, superseding version 1.4.
Right. In that case, judging is not the branch master. In fact, the branch master
what is judging?
Put in here. Judging here is allowing for variance on the input. So, for example, if there is a shitty model that's hallucinating, we should be able to run over multi-models and then get some kind of agreement.
So is that really just a sort of an averaging phase of being able to run
sort of, it's conversions.
Is it okay could you move this assessing step up to be step 4, just so that I don't keep having to
try and do that in the weird way that you have to do with a head song.
There's another way to do it. Would you like to learn a hotkey?
I always love hotkeys.
You love a good hotkey? Okay.
I've just done it. Well, undo that and show me the hotkey. What's the hotkey?
Alt-Shift up.
Oh, fucking hell, I don't even have glasses. See, this is the problem, taking your headset off and having reading glasses.
Yeah, true. So you got to highlight both lines and then go Alt-Shift up.
Nope.
Oh dear. It must be different in a Mac. Anyway, ignore me.
All right. You'll figure out what that is. Sorry,
I mean, that's probably one of my most...
Sorry, go on.
That's probably one of my most hotly used hotkeys.
I know, I've seen you use it before. And
all the time, all day, every day.
Yeah. I remember you telling me where it is before, and it's like, oh, didn't do it. And then, because it's such a trivial but important thing, I never got back to you. All right, assessing, judging, and then branch mastering. I'm holding by these verbs and nouns, and so the action of managing a branch. I guess that is the noun, isn't it?
A simpler term would be the upgrade manager, or upgrading, upgrade, or
upgrading. Yeah. Okay. So that is the process by which you're talking about versions here. Say again. So get the dots.
Upgrading, releasing a new version of the attribution bot swarm.
Okay. All right.
Automatically. So I think it's important to be automatic.
Upgraded. I'll say, well, then automatic, because it's pretty vague. Via
consensus with the bot team. Okay, so we're saying we've got a branch master bot team. Fine. Its job is to upgrade, and it upgrades the attribution bot swarm by consensus, and we'll figure out what that means in terms of prompts. Okay, good.
Number 4 is vague on. It sort of doesn't succinctly say that it's about calculating the value of the jitter.
Yes,
it's saying a bunch of other stuff.
Did I? Weirdly, this is the one that I've done the most work on, and probably, therefore, I've ignored. So
it's cool that you're in a repo here. Are you just in a folder, or is this actually a Git thing? No, you're just
no, that's
in Git. Good.
Yeah, no. Well, it's like stuck. As I was saying before, I'm trying to commit, but
your Git stuck.
Yeah, I'll figure out why. It's probably that key, or that new way of doing it.
Yeah, because that's really cool. Like that means I can pull all this into Artifact.
Yeah. The assessing. Visuality inside bot. No. This is interesting. I should be careful. This is the result of generating how to assess the Wall Street Journal article, not how to assess. That's not the meta assessing. So that's a good spot. So there's a folder here which is assessing, and this really should be under Wall Street Journal example. And then it'll be helps and assessing.
Okay, this is not my problem in the nicest possible way.
No, I spoil that. It's that whole kind of dealing with actual and meta. Okay, so ignore that. Right. You're saying that this needs more. Yes. A scorecard of what values mean. Provide a report for each of the helps used. Okay, so you're calling that out as being thin. It is thin. It is.
It's not even really trying to break it down. It's really just trying to say, because whilst the jitter is made of many components, it's saying the value generated of the jitter, because the jitter is the new packaging. It's the new application delivery mechanism, the box that wraps up your goodies. And so the value is considered, this is the unit, because this is the unit of consumption. How that gets broken down is the next step. But saying how much value was enabled or created via the consumption of this jitter, that's what's important.
This is kind of, okay, before moving on text, it's in the wrong place, isn't it? So, in order to produce a jitter, so just been saying, being asked to do a thing, and it knows what Dave values, and it knows helps. So it's got to select helps. Now, assessing should really, the scorecard about how to assess help should be above jittering, right? So the first thing is, given what Dave values...
Sorry, above jittering or about jittering?
Above.
What does above mean as opposed to about?
In this process, between contributing and jittering.
Why? How can you know? The jitter gets assembled on the fly and it gets modified over time. The assessment of the value it's created can only be known after its consumption has finished.
Yeah, but there's something here. Bear with me on this one. So, how does the jitter, given a request from Dave, search and pull together helps provide any required wrapper to make it? Okay, fine. There's no. I've not put in any. If I was to write a prompt on this one, it's like search and pull together helps. well, it's just going to get the top 5 helps. It doesn't care.
Well, it's also it's not our problem, and it's going to be highly customized how that gets done.
Oh yeah, it's customized on every prompt. So the intent of Dave is passed through, but the jitter is okay. So I understand what Dave's trying to do, what he values. So I'm now going to select from the helps. Now, so there needs to be that how you assess the jitter needs to be a step here. It could be inside the jitter.
No, it's after. It's not possible to do it before or during because you're consuming. How can you know?
We're talking about two different things. Sorry. Right. Okay. My challenge is, okay, jitter is saying, I know what Dave wants, I know what he values, go and get helps, pull it together. At no point here have I stated that there's any kind of weighting between what Dave wants, because it's probably nuanced. Right. So maybe Dave is a stickler for grammar. Maybe he wants it complete. Maybe he wants it correct. Maybe he wants it fast if it's a zip algo. We need to know what Dave is before we say to jitter, go off and assess the available helps. We need the scorecard because we're not giving this bot nearly enough information in order to do its job.
That's got nothing to do. That's got nothing to do with the attribution calculation. This whole area is not our concern. What you just described fits in that box. That's the case of how do you get good at jittering? What information do you process? This is utterly independent from the attribution process that occurs.
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry,
right, so right now we are working on the attribution process. That's right?
This is the entire thing. Yeah. What I'm trying to do is get it correcting, coherent. Let's not say correct or complete.
Right. So we want to avoid massive sinks of time and complexity, draw the boxes around the areas that we know we can separate out. How you figure out what is best for Dave fits in this box and can be independently improved. Yeah. How much value that generated is separate to how you came about making it. Like, how good the pie tastes is independent from how you chose to serve that pie in the first place.
Oh, yes, this is interesting. I went around this loop a couple of times yesterday. So, okay, right, granted what you just said. Let's move on now. So there's an assessment required, but let's roll it into jittering. Fine.
That's a separate type of assessment, and you need to choose some terms that distinctly split those things out, because you're talking about a different goal. You're talking about, I think Dave wants a pie. What kind of pie should I give him? That's different to Dave ate this pie, he ate this pie, and how much value was it? Now, it could have been because that's the only fucking pie left in the shop at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Who knows?
And you pay $50 for it. Yeah,
right. But who knows? But those are two separate things. Yes, they are a form of assessment, but you need to pick a word and a step that distinguishes those two, because one has no prior knowledge and one is pure hindsight.
Yeah. So I've gone around this boy a couple of times, and what I ended up doing, you notice, this is called dream catching. I originally called it attribution, because there is this attributing step is the point where you add in more information and then you assess that information relative to each other. So ignore this. Let's move that part into jittering. Fine. That's how you get the jitter. But then you need to assess the relative values of Linus versus the two that did.
No, you keep eclipsing the step I'm trying to add there. There's a step number 4, which is what is the value of the jitter that was consumed. You keep trying to eclipse that out. Why?
No. Oh, sorry. I've got that in... no. Got that in my written notes. Yes. There's... let me... there is a step where you pull in the available information. Right. So, the interesting information. For example, in the Wall Street Journal thing, I've got this written over. I can send you a screen grab. It's like, okay, so if the entire thing article is read to the end, that has a value. If it gets read to some part at the halfway down, okay, that has a value. If it's quoted in another website, that has value. If the entire thing is linked and shared, that has a value. So all these are additional datums that need to be assessed for the attribution. So as soon as you know, okay, so as soon as you know what the event that's paying you is, this point under attributing is given the use, the record of value, which is what I've just gone into there, who's done what and what value has been generated. How do you distribute that? And it could be that someone has written balls or quotes.
I get that. I get that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we're sticking on, but you keep skirting over 0.4 like it's not a thing.
Okay, let's try this. Right. What's in your head? Let's try and sync on this one. So 0.4.
0.4 is determining the value of the consumed jitter.
Oh, right. Okay. No, that's exactly what you said. Okay, so let me check. It's hard to do this with a headset on. So, for example, the example I just gave is if the whole article is read, it's X. If it's read to portion, it's Y. It's shared. It's Z. That sort of thing. So there's a whole bunch of things that generate the value.
And additionally, step 4 gets rerun in the future long after the jitter has been done, because each time you get new information about where it got consumed or the impact of that consumption,
exactly.
That gets redone. This is critical because this is what says to Dave, "Hey Dave, we have determined that you owe this guy 50 cents."
Yeah.
Without that.
The thing I've been looking at this is, apologies because I can't send it over because it's on pen and paper. I've done a bit of I've gone around this. The model I'm using is like advertising. What does the Wall Street Journal care about? Advertising and subscriptions. Okay, so if you read the whole article, that counts as subscriptions. Therefore, you need to also correlate what the contribution of that article was to all the articles in this edition.
Right. So this inside this box is a range of different, ever-expanding ways, of how to do these assessments that will be subject to the upgrading process.
Yeah, but in the same way as sticking up some kind of clickbait YouTube thing, you're going to get revenue over time. So this is not just that, a one snapshot. It's like, okay, if it's shared on this date, okay, where's the pay date? Fine. This date, pay date.
All right, so do we need to add something in there to say that, this gets rerun as human knowledge expands or something like that?
Yeah. I'll tidy this up, but I'm just saying. That doesn't really ignore the fucking tackles. Yeah. So it's and that time really comes down to dispersal. Now, I in a previous version of this, actually earlier this morning, but actually kind of broken out attributing to distributing, because attributing, it's like, okay, at this point, how would we value it? But then there's a distributing step. It might be just baked code, which is, okay, so what is times Z? How much? And so on. So there is the distribution thing is the action of actually recording the value. I didn't put it in because I didn't think it was an NL thing. I think that's just a base code thing.
Yeah, that's just the machinery of how does it actually get done. But working out what it should be, we can deal with the mechanics separately.
Yeah.
Okay,
good.
So now we're at a jitter's been made. It's been consumed. The consumption was recorded. We've now run a system that attempted to determine the value of that consumption.
Yep, and that's the pi to be distributed.
That is the pi.
Times Z.
That is the pi. And the pi is dynamically recalculated as new information is available, but this is the pi.
Yeah.
The pi may be scaled back if Dave is a tight ass and doesn't have any money, but the pi still, this is the calculated pi. If you don't want to pay the amount, then fine. But this is what the system said. So
shit happens. Maybe the entire company that you're doing this for goes under.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows, right? Yeah. So, okay, great. Step 4, that's fine. So how you go about doing it is probably, as you say here, given a scorecard, provide a report card. But it's not for each of the helps used, it's for the jitter.
Yes, that's an excellent point. Now there's 2 layers to that one. Fuck's sake. I'm not this incompetent in real life.
I know, it's just fucking god awful to have to try and type.
It's really awkward. Incorporating, there's 2 things. Each of the helps used. Incorporating each of the helps used.
It's not a report card for the jitter. It's not to splitting out how much each help contributed is different. That's step 5. You keep blending these 2 steps together, and that's why that makes it more complicated than it needs to be. This is enough, man. Step 4. That's hard enough.
All right. Okay. I think I get where you're getting. I think we're actually talking about the same process, but we're talking about a different level of granularity. So if I
no, you keep bleeding and smushing things together.
Hey,
as opposed, well, you are smushing things together to be.
Given a scorecard, what means provide a record for jitter incorporating each of the helps used. Okay, fine, right.
No, it's not. It's not for the helps used. That's a separation. It's just a report card for the jitter. Why do you insist on trying to break down? Because if you're gonna start looking at the helps used, you've started doing a relative comparison of the components that made up the pie.
Yeah.
That's all of step 5. If you blend those things together, like, why not go all the way? Why not go the constituents of the help? Like, what's the point in having a separate step unless you've kept it clean?
All right, okay.
This is a task in itself, man. What is the value of the jitter? Breaking down internally, you're like, after step 4, what you should have is 2 bits of very crucial information. Hey, here's the value of the jitter, and hey, here's the contributions that went into that jitter. Now, step 5 looks at both those things and figures out the long-awaited attribution table of who the fuck gets what bits of that pie.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, but I don't know why, and I'm happy to talk about why you are doing it, but I don't see why there's any benefit in trying to crack open the pie whilst you're still figuring out how big the pie is.
No. This is a different step.
Okay.
We know how that's the pie, right?
Yeah.
Determine the value. So that's unitary.
Okay. So that means that what's happening here? Am I getting confused with the fact that there's two 5s and they got some funny?
Yeah, very possibly. Okay, so broad steps. How big's the pie? Judge what relative what relatively each person should get, and at this point we need to bring in. This is your earlier point. So we rolled previously the assessment of what was a good jitter, and then we struck out this separate point saying let's consider other things that's helped to that jitter that wasn't considered, like Linus. Let's give a report card of what we think should be done. So that is how it should be distributed.
So you're saying, okay, so can you clean up these two numbers then so I stop getting confused?
Oh, yeah,
one of these headings needs to be deleted. Which one?
Yeah. Well, I actually had... okay.
I don't much care what you used to have. You just need to pick one.
I think I'm just going to revert back to it because I think it's right. Okay, so... Oh, shit.
Did you spill Iron Brew?
No. I'm still trying to find my home keys on the keyboard. Okay, so this is the value, all right? This is the scorecard. Assessing. Let's see. Given a scorecard of what value means. Now that needs to be both.
I thought that this line belonged under step 4 because you need a scorecard for what value means for a jitter.
Well, step 4, determine how much.
Determine the value of the consumed jitter. Surely you would use a scorecard for that.
No, this is the pie.
Yeah. Aren't you going to use a scorecard to work out how to figure out what the total value of the pie is?
Let's call it dollar value.
Well, no. It doesn't have to be dollars. It's just value. And
yeah, exactly. But what I had previously was value. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Because dollar is just a subset. No, not a unit. Not value is unitless because you can end up with different types of value that don't mix under the same unit. They're all unique. An example of where you'd have a scorecard would be like, social value.
Right, exactly. That's why I had value in there. But
I'm not saying that it shouldn't be. Value should be there. But how are you going to work out point 4? Surely it's with a scorecard. A scorecard for jitter value. And then you'd run through the swarm and you'd figure out...
There's something here, though. It's what you're talking about, I think, is the relative values between values.
Well, yeah, because that's total value. Right. And
that's something separate. That's a different... let's not call it a scorecard again. That's... I don't know what to
Why not? It's a scorecard. You're like...
Because we're completing...
But it's the same method.
Which is how to distribute.
Yeah, but the scorecard concept is a good concept. And you've brought that to the table as a mechanism to be used in these bot swarms.
I know, but
why wouldn't you use it there too?
Well, you could do, but it's conflating the... if you're talking about scorecard, is it... what is there to distribute and what is the relative value?
This is the scorecard of what contribution to a jitter means. And this is a scorecard of what value of a jitter means. There are obviously two different types of scorecard.
Okay, let's call it value.scorecard, right? And let's say this is contribution.
Well, no, that's different again. Like, what is there to distribute? is independent of how much value was created.
Oh man, I'm really not getting you. Number 4, right? I don't know what's
Why
happening.
is this so hard? Why is this so hard?
Let's zone down on this one. Number 4 is how much stuff are we talking about? It could be any unit value.
No. Okay, what you're talking about there should be the mechanical step that comes after number 5, right? What I'm talking about here is you might be broke as fuck, right?
Yeah.
You might be broke as fuck. Does that mean that the jitter you consumed is of no value if you can't afford to pay anything?
If you were all right, okay,
Right?
I'll counter that.
The value
Right,
of a
if you got
thing
zero-
has got
if you
nothing
if
to
you're
do
broke-
with how much I can pay.
If you're broke,
If I'm broke,
you have
flat broke.
If you're $0 and
Yeah.
someone gives you a boat to escape from Warzone,
Yep.
and you're going to love them as a brother for the rest of your life.
Right. That's a
And we
significant value creation.
Right. We need a unit which recognizes that $0
You don't need a
love
unit.
for
You
life.
you don't need a unit, but you do need to. A unit implies something fractional. What you do
Right.
need is an encapsulation or a record. It doesn't need to be divisible. This thing that represents that value. When you say unit, you mean fractionalized. And fractionalized means compared to other things. You cannot really meaningfully compare saving someone's life, but you can commemorate it with a unit, with a thing.
Right. Okay. So let's drill this down. What it's saying is number 4 has to do with what's the impact? Let's call it impact of what
Yep.
you just done.
So the impact of the
us
jitter.
doing, and yeah, now it could
Impact
be
of the
natural
jitter?
language. It could be, a long screed about how great this guy was. It could be anything. It could be, cash, gold, or you sending an email making you feel great.
Right. Okay, so it could be like how the scorecard for that calculation could be like emotional uplift, dollars
could be
generated,
Yeah, exactly. Could be
future
anything.
crisis avoided.
Right. Now, say I was the one that was called out saying, "Hey, I love you as a brother because you provide this boat," but I know that the dude that who actually owned the boat that gave it to me, and the guy with the truck that got it to the water, and a whole bunch of people now.
Yeah.
They should get like some recognition.
Right.
And so
but
that's the
that
next
is
step.
that
That's
is
the next
that is the next step. Yeah. What you're talking about is the provenance chain of the value creation event, but capturing the value creation in natural language, doesn't have to be dollars, but dollars are a subset. That is the heart of what we're trying to fucking do.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's value, it's pure value, it's complete value.
Absolutely agree. So number 4, which is determine the value.
Yes.
Without saying what the value is, could be anything like we've just gone through.
Right.
Block with boat.
Yeah.
It's like a statement of value. And then the next step is, okay, so how do we distribute that value, whatever it is? How do we recognize the whole chain that allowed that thing to happen?
Yep. I agree with what you said. What you've written on the screen doesn't match up with it. Can we reconcile that before we have our next?
Yes, please, because that was quite it was both entertaining and painful, like so many of our conversations. Right, determine the value.
You said impact, and
impact. Yeah.
Impact is better.
Yeah, I just made that up on the fly, but it's kind of cool, isn't it? Determine the impact.
Of the consumption of the jitter, not the consumed jitter.
Of the consumption, yeah. jitter.
And absolutely wipe out what is there to distribute.
Yeah. So this is just a statement of, in any way you want. I'm going to remove this because it's a very narrow example.
It's too narrow, right?
Yeah.
This is starting to feel like the fundamentals of ambient attribution, and these segregations, the demarcation between these different things, like impact versus contribution to that impact versus attribution back from that impact versus, okay, you say this guy's life, this guy's got $5, what now, right? Those types, this type of accounting is what we want to get into, because this is fucking fuzzy ass shit. This allows you to do an accounting transaction for you saving some guy's life, a stranger's life. He's got no money, no anything, except turns out he's got a billionaire uncle. And this is the last surviving fucking whoever that's been missed for whatever. And suddenly now there's somebody with something that you want, money, is able to now, and you're like, well, you provided this value. The Dreamcatcher system should nudge this other guy and be like, hey, something that you care about just happened, and the impact was immense to you.
Yeah.
You should, given your total holistic view of all the assets in your command, you should be paying something to this guy.
Yeah. Or at least, fucking recognizing. Because
recognizing. But that's recognizing the impact, both positive and negative, is the reason why bad things happen in the world, because we haven't built an intelligent digital system that can recognize the impact of each individual's actions and the consequences and knock-on effect of that impact. That is the system we're building.
Also what stops people from doing good things, because it's like, they're just going to take the piss.
That's right. Take the piss is another way of saying my impact will be diffused. It will be
it will be disregarded,
evaporated. It will be blown into the wind, and it allows other kinds of evil to exist as well. Like, I can only do a little bit. What's the point? Because you can't see the impact of a million little bits. You can't be reminded of failed impact. Like, there's no system saying, oh, you didn't give this dollar to this guy, and now multiplied by the million other people that didn't give that dollar, here's the impact that you share, the negative impact.
I just threw it out as a rhetorical piece in order to try and win the argument. What I thought, but you called it out. The use of impact is actually it's a much better term than value.
It is, yeah, because
leads to gold, dollars.
Yeah. Value immediately sounds like money, but what I noticed is that lately people have been using the word impact to represent this new form of value estimation. And I'll just try and find something interesting.
Yeah, we're doing that. No, I've talked to, even yesterday, 3 companies who define themselves by social impact.
Yeah.
Now, how they measure that, who knows? But it's not by, ROI.
Nah, it's different. So I'm just looking up things like Impact Manifesto. We got one from Weight Watchers here.
Is that a thing? Someone done that? Impact.
Yeah, well, because impact is the way that all these types of social enterprise or things, they try to push themselves forwards as generating value that's not captured by accounting methods. And
you want to
so,
grab screen? I'm quite keen to see what you're
sorry,
saying.
I closed it down because there was I
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
find in orderly fashion
No
a good
worries.
example. But there was a guy that I shared some office space with that his whole business was helping large corporations to transform how they measure what they're doing to account for the impact that they want to have. So not just measuring the money performance, but having
I
these other
swear
value
that's the
systems.
zeitgeist.
Right? That's the zeitgeist, right? This fucking thing here, this is catching that in a way that nobody has, man. And because it's natural language, it can catch motherfucking anything.
I totally agree. Almost all the conversations I'm having and the other stuff, which I will not mention for the recording, but every single one values and measure themselves by something other than dollars.
Right. But that's not to say that I can hear mentals of old turning in their grave as people try to run away from being assessed by dollars. Dollars can't be ignored, but
dollars is fuel.
there's all this other stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, great. It feels like we're coming back around here.
Yeah. Good. Right. Number 5 is still not right. Let's get this right. So we've got the impact, and we've got the use of the value, and we've got additional information coming in. I'm not reading through these. This is the process. So you've got what Dave valued and what impact he generated.
Right. So I think that this step 5 is attribution, and that is that is where you break down the constituent components of the jitter based on a scorecard, and you figure out how much of that total impact each piece was responsible for. And it's going to come out a little complicated, because if the jitter had, say, 50% social impact, not all of the helps provided will share in that social impact. Some of the helps will only have contributed to the logical correctness aspect of the jitter.
Yes, and the coherence, and whether actually over time it's being tested.
Right. So how you do it almost comes up like a bit of a matrix, or it is a complex calculation, because it's looking at the value in all the different the impact in all the different dimensions of impact that we are able to recognize, which is large.
If you can forgive me for the horrible typing. Okay, so the way I've been
the shit I've forgiven you for already.
Intent, the inputs, the operation, it's obvious stuff. I just want to get down that we've understood exactly what. Okay, so the intent is you're talking there. It was good. It was bring together. What's the intent of attribution? I can give a go, but you were saying it very eloquently.
The intent of attribution is to determine which components of the jitter were responsible for what proportion of each dimension of the of each impact dimension. And I want to
responsible for the which component was responsible for the impact of each of the components of the impact matrix, let's call it. So you got two things there. We've got components of the jitter, and we've got
the components of the impact matrix, which makes sense because we're adding a whole bunch of additional information about context later on. Do you, anything you can kick holes in that? I can give
to determine which components of the jitter were responsible for how much of each impact dimension.
Exactly.
No, it's not responsible for how much of each impact dimension.
Was responsible for the impact of each of the components of the impact dimensions.
Well, if you think of impact as being multi-dimensional, where, for example, money is one, social is another, the components don't have any dimensions, right? They are just
right.
They just are entities, but the impact has a multi-dimensional vector where each vector is the type of impact that we are assessing for and the magnitude of that impact. And so what you need to do is you need to say, well, there's all these entities that went into the jitter. Looking at each dimension of the impact and the magnitude of that impact, split it between the components of the jitter for each dimension.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just doing a note. There's an artifact called Impact Matrix, which can be updated with new information. Time. Okay, so we get new information, and so the impact is updated over time. And then we have the components of the jitter, which we know, which is static because it's a point of use. And what we do is, given the components of the jitter, we assess it against the impact matrix in order to assess which of the components in the jitter contributed to the impact, given any one impact matrix.
Well, that's confusing. No,
let me try
the
and do that.
The component dimensions.
Let's talk about it as input. What you've got is the components of the jitter at use and their history through contribution. Okay,
so we know the jitter at use, yes.
We also have.
We should say provenance and their provenance and their contribution provenance. History sounds like it's not as strong.
Okay, yeah. Okay, can I write a note for myself because I've used history throughout, but I agree. There's nothing worse than watching someone else type, especially when.
That's all right. I got a great little little short form content thing to show you that will, I think, really help with this dimensionality discussion that we're having.
Yeah. Do you want to do it now, or?
I can't find it. I'm searching, so don't let me slow you down.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm putting up the straw man. So the components of the jitter at use. So at point of use, we've got that's static because we know what's been done in history through and their history through contribution. Provenance through contribution. And then we're also combining that with the impact matrix being dynamic based on actual real world impact. Okay. Now, the operation I would suggest is, why am I talking out loud?
That's it.
I'll do that. Okay, so given that, considering I always thought it was better at touch typing. It was only in VR. You understand?
VR, yeah.
Considering components of jitter, the jitter, and the that points. Generate I'm going to call it a distribution table of how to
What's awkward is I have to search for vector embedding Hitler, which is...
There goes your search history.
I know, right? It's really awkward because it's not what I wanted. Alright, I got it. So if you want to take a break from hammering stuff out, I got something cool to show you.
Oh yeah, go for it. I think this is, I don't know, I'm loving this, but yeah, go for it. I'm not so much loving, doing blindfolded touch typing.
I know, dude. Once we have this system up and running, it will be so much better in every possible fucking way.
Okay, what's this then?
Well, give us a minute. Damn, give us
word vectors encode meaning.
Just give us a second.
Linguistics.
Give us a second.
Linguistics.
Just a second.
Oh, ships. I studied linguistics for about 2 years when I was like 19.
Tools like ChatGPT process text. The first thing they do is subdivide it into little pieces, and they associate each piece with a large vector.
Yeah, okay.
This is called an embedding of that piece of text, and it's helpful.
Fuck, can you just... I'm really sorry. This has been an embarrassment of digital management. Yeah, because it was playing like all over the place. I'm like, God almighty, what?
That's just
to the directions of this high-dimensional space.
Okay, here we go. Game time.
What is Hitler plus Italy minus Germany? This came up in a full video that I did dissecting what happens inside large language models. You see, when tools like ChatGPT process text, the first thing they do is subdivide it into little pieces, and they associate each piece with a large vector, some long list of numbers. This is called an embedding of that piece of text, and it's helpful to imagine these embedding vectors as directions in some very high-dimensional space, even if we struggle to concretely visualize anything more than 3 dimensions. Models that learn to embed words as vectors like this often encode meaning into the directions of this high-dimensional space. If you take the difference between the embeddings of man and woman, and you add that to the embedding of uncle, you get a vector very close to the embedding of aunt.
Patience.
If you take the embedding of Italy minus Germany, and you add it to the embedding of Hitler, you get something very close to the embedding of Mussolini. It's as if the model learned to associate some directions in this high-dimensional space with Italianness, and others with World War II Axis leaders.
Okay, the payload wasn't in the video. The payload is that impact is known to GPTs in multi-dimensional space.
Right.
It's an emergent property that progresses with time as the vector space progresses itself, and is not obvious in terms of a kind of linear scorecard itself.
Yes and no. It's just simply saying that the dimensions along which we can measure impact are unlimited in an LLM, because you can include any dimension that the LLM understands, which is presumably all dimensions.
Right.
Right. And so once you have those dimensions.
Shit. Sorry.
Yep.
2 seconds. Sorry.
What is Hitler plus?
I'll be up. All right. Okay. Oops.
What's oops?
I didn't realize how late it was. Jude's up and asking for stuff. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Okay. You gotta go,
right,
or
yes.
what?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I've probably got about 15 minutes.
All right, cool.
Thereabouts.
Yeah, that's all good. Okay, so you could think of impact as being typically when people do value calculations, like if you say value, you're talking about money, and money is simply a one-dimensional measure.
Yeah.
Right? Impact is able to have these multiple dimensions that LLMs understand very well. And so,
and also the in this case, the length of the vector can also be a weighted value.
the length of the vector is also like the magnitude of the impact. And so if you thought about impact as looking exactly like this multidimensional vector here, taking each of those vectors, the constituent vectors, and cutting it up to a portion to the components that went into the jitter, each dimension that you still there? Hello. Oh dear, I lost you. Let me know when you have returned. Hello, you back?
Hey.
Hey.
Sorry about that.
You died.
I hate when that happens.
You died.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So I agree.
Right.
This is a value space of n
Yeah.
dimensions, which
Right.
those dimensions
Yeah.
also have weights between them.
And so what your scorecard is doing in vector space is determining a number of dimensions. That's what a scorecard is. And all you're asking the bots to do is they know about that dimension because they have been trained on all human knowledge. And then your Wall Street Journal example was simply asking for a magnitude of the vector in each of the dimensions that you gave it on the scorecard.
Yes, almost right. It was asking for a magnitude and relative weighting between the other vectors that.
Correct. So when you had not the other vectors, you're because and that I think is a mistake because you were trying to collapse vector space down, whereas you should only collapse it at the last possible moment.
At the point of decision. Yeah. Okay. So
if we at the decision point, if we can reassess, but say at the event that is used, it's like okay, we assess the magnitude and the relative weighting, and being vectors, you get something like that coming out. That's your result, but that result is only valid for this assessment and will change. Because
and then there's like second order passes that we can do that will give you a final result that takes into account what the previous calculations were. And so it sort of bends the final, weights the final result to be having a corrective measure as well.
No, that's just another vector.
Yeah. So if you think about it like the jitters are a natural number of components, right? The smallest number is 1, and the biggest number is unlimited. You're taking each of the magnitudes of each of these vectors and you're cutting up that line proportionally to represent the ratio between the contribution to the magnitude of each vector that each component provided.
Yes. Yep.
That is what I want to say in that text. Like that's what the step of attribution is.
Right. Okay. So given at the runtime the vector space, the n vector space, and given each vector, so we know the relative contribution of it, what's the history going back down that vector, which may be shared between vectors, in order to get what the what everyone's owed in impact.
Right, where impact is this specific dimension, where you can do a translation between different types of dimension into money.
Yeah. I'm loving the impact.
This is it, eh? This is fucking impact. This is multi-dimensional impact, I was
looking at the n-dimensional vector space yesterday, but it's a thing that could only really be handled reasonably by NL.
Yeah,
because
it's the only right.
It's
only NL could handle.
It's like 1,000 dimensions there, and the question then is how to get the information to the bots, and then the history, of course. But we've already got that.
Yeah,
I think this is doable.
This is beautiful, because this is every dimension you could possibly want, and so. At the point that you've figured out how much of each component is due how much of each dimension of impact, then the fifth step is distribution, which is payout,
that's relatively mechanical. Once you've got
this is the top of the fuzzy inference mountain. Figuring out first of all what exactly the shape is, and I love this because we can actually make a physical 3D model that looks something like this, that you're like, that's your yes.
It's going to be, well, I've already got 6D. I mean, how are you going to do a 3D model?
Well, look at that, right? You just, all you're doing is you can color code the vectors and you can put a label on them and be like, well, that was social, that was environmental, that was US dollars, that was fucking right.
So this is so yesterday I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, which was wrong. I was thinking about this as effectively filters, which is filters are n-dimensional, right? And then taking each of the filters and applying some kind of assessment, and then assessing each of the results of the filters and so on. But I have to think about the kind of n-dimensional vector space as a better way of doing that.
It's the way to go, man. It's the absolute way to go.
I struggle to figure out how to do this just simply with filters.
I know good shit when I see it, and I'm telling you, this is the good shit.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is
and I can definitely.
Is awesome.
I can.
It also
definitely...
sounds cool when he's talked about n-dimensional vector space. Everyone thinks you're fucking Doctor Who, when it's actually it doesn't matter. It's just like it's another thing we want to measure. Right. Let me think.
So that right there, that is jitter impact, and then from that structure, which is one of the hardest structures for us to calculate. The next hardest resolution or increase in fidelity of this diagram is to break up each vector to those components, which is actually less of a calculation than figuring out what the impact vector is in the first place.
No, I disagree. I think that's more complex because each.
Okay, well, let's not get into a debate about which multi-dimensional calculation is harder than the other one. But anyway, this is, once we get here, this is actually what the Dreamcatcher is all about, and then assigning the breaking up the lines to, you know, be like this much to that component, this much to that component.
That's the contribution, the brute fact of the history.
Yeah. And then the payout of that is fucking relatively trivial. I mean, let's not have an argument about if that's hard or not. I think
it's not hard.
But that is ambient attrifucking-fusion. It's attribution in natural language that you could not fucking do without these whopping great multi-dimensional vector space LLMs.
Well, interesting enough, I did a few runs. You know that the sessions that I sent over for the worksheet journal thing, and it came up with a whole bunch of things that you could assess.
It came up with a bunch of dimensions.
And then I put some code in, and like, how do you assess this code? And came up with a whole bunch of different assessments.
But what I love about this is it's visualizable. It's visualizable. Like, I can make a simple web browser based visualizer, so that once we've calculated what these bots are going to do, I can show you pictures of these generated things that look like what's on the screen here, and you can compare different jitters and things and see it visually. I think
only by rolling up, because with an n-dimensional vector space is like, how are you going to do that?
Yeah, I know. So all I'm doing is I'll be using color codes and labels and things, just like they have done here. Like, they've shown multi-dimensional space in 2D. So
what are the vertices there?
What? Here they've just used tokens as vertices, but or concepts. But we would be labeling them as impact dimensions based on the scorecard.
Right, but the point is, this is entirely structured and something that AIs will be perfectly happy with.
Perfectly happy with. It's their native language. Whether we can render
it onto a 2D screen is our problem, not theirs.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all good.
Okay, all right.
I feel like we just cracked how to do a very crude form of ambient attribution in a way that is like, we could build on this for years, but the boxes would probably stay the same. Like, those 6 steps, if I include step 6 is the distribution.
Yeah.
And step 6 is not trivial because you have to distribute multi-dimensional qualities that, like, you know, right?
Sure,
like
but it's But you've decided what to do. It's how to do it.
Yeah. And if one of the dimensions is money, and if you can do a mapping between some dimension like love and money, which is something that, you know, XY has managed to do all the time, you can approximate the distribution process can be approximated for multiple dimensions to squash down to
right. You can merge similar impacts.
Or have an exchange rate. You know, like, you can have like the going exchange rate in the Dreamcatcher for love versus money is X to the dollar.
Exactly.
Right? And you're like, okay, there you go.
A whole can of whip-ass there. But
We don't, and then because of the fact that we can show it in this image like this, means that we can also say, when people say, why was my money not worth as much as that guy's code, then you just look at it in this space, and it becomes very simple, illuminating, in fact.
And God knows what the vectors are going to be, but it could be anything like this guy only had 1 hour a day, and he had to look after his
right. And the thing is, it'll
who knows?
Yeah, it'll also be translatable or internationalizable, because these vector qualities will be international. They're shared by all races. Sure, we weight them differently, but the concepts will pop up in all multi-language, multilingual LLMs. Will all understand the same concepts.
All right. So before we disappear up on arse with backpacking, packing, because this is brilliant. I totally get this. What I'm going to do is to try and prove it through the WSJ with I think there's 6 vectors. So what we want is the identification of the vector, the magnitude of the vector, and the weighting between vectors, and see what bots can deal with that.
I disagree that you need the weighting between vectors, but don't let me. It feels like I've done a lot of contradicting of what. Don't let me stop you. I mean, you come
You've
this
never,
far.
man, you've never contradict me ever. Why is that? You know.
So yeah, that feels like if you can get that document up, do you want me to take a quick look at your repo for you and see what's going on so you can push?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so fire that up. Yeah. Bring that up on the screen and I'll take a look.
I'd probably need to go and apologize to Jude at some point, because it's probably a very nice coffee, actually. This was nice coffee. Okay.
All right, so bring up the terminal. And give me get status.
Oh, fuck, I'm going to have to type. There's the whole case.
Yeah, you're going to have to type. Okay, and then get space add space dot.
This is just the usual way. There's one button. Yeah, I've just pressed the one button on the commit, but the repo doesn't exist yet, so I need to initialize it. I think that might be. Should already have my keys, because this is the thing I've been doing all the rest with. But anyway.
All right. Because you got no. So type get get space remote space dash v.
Remote space dash v.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got no remote. So yeah, you need to add a remote.
All right. Okay.
To be able to push to a GitHub repo.
But I was doing it. Damn it.
Well, you went.
So it's like still doing it. It's still doing it.
Yeah. So you wanna just ask ChatGPT to tell you how to add a remote, and then you've got hung, like something's got hung.
Yeah, I don't even know how to kill this. There's no kill.
No, there isn't. You're shit out of luck there. Fuck. Anyway, I'll
I'll figure it out.
That was an incredibly illuminating session, and it feels to me like that is the definition of ambient attribution. And
there's nothing like having to try and do it to actually hone in actually what the fuck we were talking about.
Yeah, it seems. Would you agree with me that it's very doable now? Well,
yeah,
that's doable, right? Like that's fucking. You can actually do this thing, and you could only do it with an LLM.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking, okay, so probably not, but I'm gonna try see how far I can get today.
Yeah, have a shot, man. All right, I better leave you before you get suffer irreparable social damage in the particular vector of
well, we're having to find irreparable.